Right, we're going to make a facial rig. This is achieved by creating a whole bunch of morph targets which operate different parts of the face, and then creating a graphical user interface, or GUI, to control them. First things first is we have to create a reference version of this which we can use for creating all our morph targets. So what I'm going to do is just select the character here and clone her as a copy, and I will call it something like vface reference. And then I go down the stack, because I'm going to put the morpho modifier above the symmetry and below the skin modifier. I'm actually going to delete all of those down to the symmetry and collapse it at that point, just to guarantee that all of the vertex IDs and everything will be the same as the ones that go into the morpho modifier. And once I've got rid of the skin off the stack, I can pick up the thing and move it across, and I'm going to move it across an exact amount just to keep things tidy. The other thing I'm also going to do is I'm going to copy across her eyes and teeth. We'll use them as we go through creating morph targets to ensure that the morph targets are valid and don't intersect the skin at all. So let's just make a copy of those across like that. Zoom in, just line them up pretty close. I'm just going to create a layer for these to keep everything tidy. So new layer, and I would call it face morphs. That's going to become my current layer, and of course anything that's selected at the time is now part of that layer. That frees me up then to hide the body layer, and this is the thing that I'm working with. This is my reference material, so what I'm going to do, because we're only interested in the face, I'm just going to hide all the other polygons in that mesh so that it doesn't take up quite so much room in the viewport. I haven't actually got rid of them because I've got to have exactly the same number of polys in this as I do in my complete mesh for the morph target to work. So I've actually just hidden them so I can carry on working on this. Just going to rename the eyes as well. vface ref eye left. vface ref eye right. Right, so that's all sensibly named, and I can now take a copy of that each time I need to make a new morph target. Now the first morph target I'm going to make is the mouth opening. Now as the mouth opens, the jaw obviously opens as well, and the easiest way to achieve this shape is to actually skin it to a jaw. So we're actually going to make a copy of this now that we can use for making that morph target. I'm just going to take the whole lot and shift and drag it to the side like that as a copy. I'll rename them later, but you can call it something sensible like V-face jaw open skinned or something. I'm just going to copy across the bones from the original rig, and I'm going to use them to skin this so I can actually open and close the jaw in a realistic fashion. So I'll just pick the skull bone up and shift and drag it across, and as I do so it brings all its children with it, and it will also bring the spine with it that's associated to it. So I can again align that up by eye because I'm only using it for skinning purposes, so that's plenty good enough. And then this whole assembly here, I'm just going to isolate that so everything's not too busy. Now this, even though I've cloned it across from the other skeleton, is still part of the original cat rig that was set up, so I need to animate it in exactly the same way, in exactly the same panel, and I'm going to create an animation layer there and just do some jaw movements. Let's just x-ray that so we can see a bit better. In fact, before I do that, I'm actually going to link the teeth here to the bones so that as the mouth opens and closes I can see the way the lips interact around the teeth and make sure that that still carries on working. So now I'm going to put some animation on here. Got my animation layer on, and just up to frame 10 the main movement of this is actually going to be the jaw opening. So just in the usual way with auto key on, I'm going to open the jaw. You have to make a kind of judgment here, but the idea is that it needs to open far enough so that the bottom teeth are about level with where the chin used to be, and it's probably easier to see that in the front viewport there. So that's the jaw open movement. Okay. And then I'm also going to do some other jaw movements, which you may or may not need depending on the requirements of your rig. So I'm actually going to put a set key at the beginning, so I need position as well, and drag this set key across to frame 20 so it closes. Then I'm just going to move it side to side and forward. These are called jaw protrusions. So I'm going to move it this direction about 1 centimetre. I'm using the status bar at the bottom in the X direction to see that, and then about 1 centimetre in the other direction, and then to frame 40, and I'll just centre it up again by copying that keyframe back, and then do a protrusion where the jaw goes forwards about 1 centimetre. Just looking at the Y value down there in the status bar. And that is the range of jaw movements that you can achieve. So now I can go through the skinning process in a normal way, and I'll talk you through this because there are a few little pitfalls. So put the skin modifier on and add in the only 2 bones I need are the jaw and the head. Okay, and let's see what that looks like initially. Well, pretty hideous as you would expect, and in fact it's worse than that. If I go back down to my editable poly and unhide all, you can see that the whole mesh is actually affected by the jawbone if it's in the bottom half at all. So obviously we need to fix that, because all of that morphing information, even though it's hidden, would go into the morpher. So the first thing to do is actually just to put envelopes on, select all the vertices and set them with a weight of 1 onto the head bone so that none of that happens. And you can see now that the jaw has no effect on any of it. Now I can go back down to my editable poly, hide those polygons again so that I'm only working on a head. Initially I'm going to get the whole of the bottom lip and everything up to and including this sort of line that goes up through the centre of the cheek here. Now selecting the bottom lip is tricky while the mouth is closed, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to select these 3 vertices here and just grow that selection until it reaches the side of the mouth here. And once it's done that, you can be pretty sure, because there's no internals to this mouth, it's just an open hole, that it's gone back the right distance as well, and it's gone out as far as here. And then just in the left viewport I can select all the other vertices associated with that jaw, like so. Not that one. And like I say, up to and including this centre line along the cheek, and going back as far as the edge of the jawbone here. Choose the jawbone and weight them 100% onto that. Now this is not going to look great, but it's only a first attempt really. Let me just hide those envelopes. Show no envelopes, there we go. Makes it a bit easier to see what's going on. Right, so now you can see that you should get some kind of motion like this, and it's good just to check this, because your main thing that you need to check is that the whole of the lip is moving each time. If you get the odd vertex here coming down and going up, then this is the time to fix the weighting on that vertex. So now I need to blend that weighting somewhat, because obviously it's pretty nasty at the moment. So first thing to do is to select the vertices that run down this center cheekbone, and you notice that I'm selecting them with a window where possible to enable me to select the ones on both sides, and that's easier than mirroring it across later. And straight away I'm just going to put those 50-50 like that and check again that they move in the correct way, and that's quite bad because it's taken the internal parts of the mouth as well, which is unexpected. So let's just deselect them. Now the mouth can open, it's much easier to deselect vertices inside the mouth when it's when they're problematic. I think I should have included those as well, there and there. There we go. And that gives us a slightly better mouth shape. That's like the key, because you know that's going to be 50-50 because it's halfway. So what I do now is I'm going to the front viewport. I'm actually just going to select all of the vertices around the corners of the mouth here, on both sides again. And that one there as well. Same on that side. And the loops running across here. Same again on the bottom half of the mouth. Choose these ones around here as well. Notice I'm not choosing the center down here. The reason is that is going to stay as defined where it is. I'm just going to choose some around the base of the nose as well to allow it to have a little bit of movement there. Now I'm going to use the blend tool here, and the blend tool will just take an average value. So this vertex here will average itself to be halfway between that one, and that will work out nicely. In here, where there's a whole bunch of vertices, it has to have a few iterations of blending before they all get affected. And actually, it won't blend towards bones that have got 0 weight. So what we need to do is we need to do a blend with this bone selected, and then select that bone and do a blend with that one to ensure that all the vertices blend to all the bones. So I'll show you that now. If I click blend first, you'll see the bottom half here blends up a little bit. Then I click the jawbone and do blend, and then click the head and blend. And as you can see, every time I blend, the influence comes further in towards the center of the mouth. And I just keep doing that until I've got a shape that I think is okay. Something like that, and I can test it out. That's not bad. I'm just going to do one more on there because the top hasn't quite blended all the way to the center. That gives us a better result. It gives us quite a nice smooth look to that. Okay. Around the neck area, I need to have a look at that as well, because you can see that that's not very well blended at all. Now this line along here is the jawline, so that can't change. But what I can do is take these ones around here and make them 50-50. I'm also going to take this peculiar one where the ear joins on and make that 50-50 as well, because that's going to give me a sort of smoother transition. You can see now that the neck is a bit more realistic. These ones under here, which are soft, are not part of the main jaw. I can blend to make them a bit more, just blend them a few times to make them fit in. It has the effect, it's a bit like using the relax tool, has the effect of kind of relaxing them into position. And you can see that's quite a reasonable edge flow all the way around when that jaw opens. So now I've got the skinning done, all that remains is to make some morph targets of that. Now I'm going to make 4 morph targets of it in this position, and then I'm going to do a bit of reskinning and make a 5th morph target, because it needs to be jaw open, mouth open, and we also need a jaw open, mouth closed morph target, and you'll see why later. So first things first, move on to frame 10, right click, choose clone, as a copy, and we'll call that mouth open. The morpher will take on this name as the name of the morph target. Then I collapse the skin modifier, and that enables me then to move it away like so, and I now have a morph target. Move to the next morph target, which is the left protrusion. Clone, I call it jaw left. So copy, collapse that, and move that across. Then go back to here, move to there, make a copy, call it jaw right, collapse the skin, and move it across. And then jaw forwards. Select that, clone, jaw F, and collapse the skin, and move that across. Okay, so I've got 4 jaw-based morph targets there. I said I'm going to reskin that. I wasn't joking, but it's not as onerous as it sounds. What I need to do now is do another version of the skin there where the mouth is closed. So what I'm going to do is just choose the whole mouth by selecting these vertices here and doing a ring. And then I'm going to weight the entire lot firstly onto the head and then onto the jaw. And I'm not going to do it 50-50, I'm just going to go plus 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 onto the jaw until it looks like it's in a kind of sensible position, because when you do this with your jaw open and your mouth closed, your mouth is never exactly in the middle. So up like that is quite sensible. Then I just have to reblend around the edges here, so I'm going to grow that selection out to about where the edge of that nasolabial fold is, where the kind of crease mark that runs around there. Up to about there is usually about right. Just refine that a little bit. So let's just get rid of all those vertices on the nose, for example, because I don't want the nose to change shape. I don't mind the bottom edge of the nose relaxing a little bit, but I certainly don't want the nose to change shape while this is all going on. And then I'm going to deselect all of the vertices on the lips, and I'll sort them out separately in a minute. So now I'm going to blend, swap bones, blend, swap bones, blend, swap bones, blend, got it, swap bones, blend. We're getting there. These bits down here need quite a bit of changing. I think the shape around the mouth is quite relaxed now. I'm just going to take these, because there's a big step up to the lips there and it's making it quite distorted. I'm just going to take those and these two, I think. I've got both sides. Yeah, I think they will do okay. And I'm actually going to weight them just manually more towards the head, like so. Oh, I missed one. And maybe blend them like so. I'm going to copy and paste the one from the other side, because that's copy, paste. Right, so that's fairly smooth. I'm just going to select the mouth again. And I'm going to blend the mouth a little bit as well, because the mouth would actually get very slightly, the lips would get very slightly fuller as you make that shape. That may be slightly too full. There we go, that's not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to just create one morph target from that in exactly the same way. Clone it, call it mouth open 2, and collapse the skin and copy that across to there. Right, now I've done all those. If you want, you can delete that. Delete. And you should be left with these. I'm a little bit fussy on these kind of things, so I just like to get them all evenly spaced by lining them up on the grid. I find that when you've got quite a lot of these, having them evenly spaced is quite beneficial. So I've got all the morph targets there for the jaw movements, and now I'm just going to test them on my main character. So I'll bring back the main body here, choose the mesh, and go back into here. Now the morpher has to go underneath the skin modifier, which is why when we set up this reference, we deleted everything down to the skin modifier and then collapsed. So in here I'm just going to put a morpher modifier on, and then I'm going to add in that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and then I can test them out on the main rig here. You have to bear in mind that obviously the jaw movement isn't working on this, so it looks a bit funny with the teeth at the moment. That we will fix later when we do the GUI. But just check that they all work before moving on. In fact, if you're sensible, you check that they all worked before you deleted the skinned version. I'm now going to create the other morph targets for the face. These will be created just using simple modelling techniques, so will be a bit easier. But before I do, another useful tip, I'm going to create a kind of skull object based on this, so that I know that when I'm, for example, raising the eyebrows up, that I'm not indenting into the hard parts of the head. So to do this, I'm just going to select some strategic edge loops around the character. We're typically talking about the mask region, the bridge of the nose, the cheekbones, and the chin and the jaw. So I'm just selecting these using whatever technique you're happy with. So select, say, a selection like that. Then I'm going to detach them as a clone. I shall call them V-Face Ref Skull. I will take this and I'm going to use the push modifier. Let me just make it a different color so it's easier to see. So take this and just use a push modifier to push it into the head about 3 or 4 millimeters. So minus 0.3, for example. And there you see, combined with the teeth and the eyes, that's going to give us a reference of kind of no-go areas. Skin can't go inside that. Right. We're not going to use conform or anything clever, it's just there as a reference for us. Now when we want to create a morph target, basically just as we did with the skin one, we're going to take a copy of our reference skull, the whole lot, and that way when we've got a copy of everything, we can work on it here. As we model, it means that obviously we can avoid the skull areas and so on. Now the area I'm going to look at first is the eyelid. Now the eyelid is going to need 4 different morph targets. The upper eyelid needs to come down to close the eye. It also needs to go up into the eye socket or surprise. The lower eyelid needs to go down into the eye socket, and it needs to come up. It doesn't normally go up, but of course when you've got the evil stare or your eyeball is looking up, you need it to go up, and it needs to go up about halfway. So I'm going to create those morph targets for you now. I'm not going to go straight into high speed mode because again I'm going to show you a little tip that hopefully will be quite useful for you. So first things first, select the polygons that run around the edge of the eyelid, and I'm just going to deselect the bottom ones because I only want to work with the top at the moment. Now I want to get a nice kind of curve shape, but I want it the other way up, that way. And the easiest way to achieve that is actually to use the scale tool. So if you go up to the scale tool, make sure that you're on non-uniform scale, which is the middle one. Definitely don't be on the bottom one. I don't know why they even put that in there. And then right click on it, and then you've got the different values here, and under Y type in -100. You see, you can't actually do a scale of -100 using the gizmo, but this gives you a curve going the other way. Now it's pretty horrible at the moment, but the point is it's the easiest way to make it go the other way without too much hassle. You're then going to probably tone it down a bit using the gizmo, like so. Move it down a bit. You can use the scale gizmo quite a lot to sort of flatten or increase the curvature of the eyelid, and also increasing the curvature vertically, like so. And this needs to come down to a completely closed position, like so. Alright, yes, we can see the eyeball breaking through, but that's actually not prime concern at the moment. You may be surprised. And then I need to also cover the tear duct here. So that edge there, just move that down a little bit to cover that. We've now got the eye closed. Now obviously the eye doesn't close in a straight line like that. The edge around the top here also fits in, and the easiest way to approach doing that edge is just to select it and initially at least use the relax tool. So if I just click relax here, then I can change a number of iterations until it comes down to a sensible kind of level. I'm not doing any relaxing on the bottom half. I don't want to change the bottom eyelid at all. It's all got to be the top eyelid. When I'm happy with that, just OK. And then use the scale tool again, just to increase the curvature very slightly of that, and move it out a little bit, just to give it that kind of slightly more natural look. And I might just decrease the curvature that way and bring it down a bit as well. Okay, and there we have one eye closed. It's also a good idea when you're creating these morph targets just to look at them with a turbo smooth on, because that's how you will see them. Make sure you have the same settings, so if you've used smoothing groups, make sure you carry on using smoothing groups and get a feel for what it's going to look like when the eye is actually closed, and well, it'll do. Make sure you delete that afterwards, because obviously that's going to stop it working as a morph target. So that's eye closed. So now I'm going to rename that one as eye right top closed. And now I'm just going to go into high speed mode while I create the other 3 morph targets for the eyes. You can choose to watch or not. I'll put a fade to black at the end so you know where to skip over till.